infrastructure sectors as defined in CIS's mission statement, they would largely be on point for the hardening, what we would call resiliency net defense side.
Thank you, and I yield back.
Sure.
The gentleman yields back. Mr. Gaetz.
So where is it? The laptop.
Sir, I'm not here to talk about the laptop. I'm here to talk about the FBI cyber program.
You are the assistant director of FBI Cyber. I want to know where Hunter Biden's laptop is. Where is it?
Sir, I don't know that answer.
That is astonishing to me. Has FBI Cyber assessed whether or not Hunter Biden's laptop could be a point of vulnerability, allowing America's enemies to hurt our country?
Sir, the FBI cyber program is based off of what's codified in Title 18, Title 18, Section 1030, a code which talks about computer intrusions, right, using nefarious intent network.
But you've talked about passwords here. I mean, Hunter Biden's password on his laptop was Hunter02. He drops it off at a repair store. I'm holding the receipt from Max Computer Repair, where in December 2019, they turned over this laptop to the FBI. And what now you're telling me right here is that as the assistant director of FBI Cyber, you don't know where this is after it was turned over to you 3 years ago.
Yes, sir, that's an accurate statement.
How are Americans supposed to trust that you can protect us from the next colonial pipeline if it seems that you can't locate a laptop that was given to you 3 years ago from the first family, potentially creating vulnerabilities for our country?
Sir, it's not in the purview of my investigative responsibilities.
But that is shocking that you wouldn't, as the assistant director of cyber, know whether or not there are international business deals, kickbacks, shakedowns that are on this laptop that would make the first family suspect to some sort of compromise. Mr. Assistant Director, have you assessed whether or not the first family is compromised as a result of the Hunter Biden laptop?
Sir, as a representative of the FBI cyber program, it is not in the realm of my responsibilities to deal with the questions that you're asking me.
Has anyone at FBI Cyber been asked to make assessments whether or not the laptop creates a point of vulnerability?
Sir, we have multiple lines of investigative responsibility in the FBI. They're all available in public source.
Well, I would think you'd know this one. I mean, I would think that if the president's son, who does international business deals, referencing the now president with the Chinese, with Ukrainians, I mean, have you assessed whether or not the Hunter Biden laptop gives Russia the ability to harm our country?
Sir, again, we can do this back and forth for the next couple of minutes. I don't have any information about the Hunter Biden laptop or the investigation.
But should you? I mean, you're the assistant director of FBI Cyber.
By the block and line chart, no, sir, I should not.
Who should we put in that chair to ask questions about this laptop that FBI has had for 3 years?
Sir, I'm not in a position to make a recommendation who should say.
So you don't have it, you don't know who has it, you don't know where it is, you're the assistant director. You know, earlier you talked about whether or not you were the Grant Hill or the Christian Laettner. It sounds like you're the Chris Webber trying to call a timeout when you don't have one. So I mean, who is it? Do you even know who has it? Do you know who we should put in that chair to ask these questions to?
No, sir, I don't know who has it.
Well, could you find out and tell us? You're going to have to give us briefings, thanks to Mr. Liu and Mr. Massey's question about whether or not the FBI was taking a $5 million test drive on the Pegasus system that was being used to target people in politics, people in government, people in the media, people in American life. So will you commit to give us a briefing as the assistant director of FBI Cyber as to where the laptop is, whether or not it's a point of vulnerability, whether or not the American people should wonder whether or not the first family is compromised?
Sir, I'd be happy to take your request back to our office.
Gosh, I mean, will you advocate for that briefing? As in, you will?
I will be happy to take your request back to FBI headquarters.
Well, do you believe that that is a briefing that the Congress is worthy of having, I guess?
Sir, I'm not going to answer that question. Right? I'm here to talk. The
Is that
invitation,
time
sir,
out?
the invitation says oversight of the FBI cyber division. It does not say anything.
Well,
about
right,
the
but I
topic
mean,
you're
this
asking
is a cyber asset. This
It's
is a
not a
point of
cyber asset.
vulnerability. If there are passwords, if there are business deals, if there are references to things that could harm our country, like you can't even sit here right now and say that you know that there's not a point of vulnerability. Maybe there are other crimes, maybe there are tax issues or whatever, but as it relates to our, is the first family sufficient cyber infrastructure to protect? You don't even know if they're compromised. Tell you what, Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record of this committee the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop, which I'm in possession of.
I'm not,
There's no objection to that.
so I can't say no objection.
I've never had.
I
such
will
a
object pending further
long-
investigation.
And what's the basis of that objection?
It's a unanimous consent request, and I object pending.
Very well, I have a
further-
subsequent question. Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt.
It may very well be
From the Mac
entered-
shop.
It may very well be entered into the record after we look at it further.
Very well, Mr. Chairman, I have a
Ms.
subsequent
Demings is now
unanimous consent.
recognized. Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter into the record the receipt from the Department of
Mr.
Justice
Chairman, this is
to
Ms.
the
Deming.
Mac
Am
shop.
I next, or am I next? or-
Without objection, and now Ms. Demings.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Assistant Director Vondrum, for your patience, your endurance, and most of all, for your service to our nation. In a February 9th advisory, FBI and partner agencies warned about the continued prevalence of phishing emails, remote desktop protocols, exploitation of software vulnerabilities as attackers' strategies for gaining access to systems. Assistant Director, could you tell me why these strategies have been so effective or are so effective?
Ma'am, could you restate that question? I missed part towards the end. I just want to make sure I'm crisp on the answer.
Yes, regarding the phishing emails, remote desktop protocols, exploitation of software vulnerabilities as attacker strategies for gaining access to systems. Could you please tell us why these strategies have been so effective?
Sure, because remote desktop protocol is going to give any adversary direct access to essentially command and control of a server or of a user end computer, and that will give them the rights, the administrative rights, to arguably do whatever they need to do to meet the intent of their attack.
Which tactic, phishing emails versus software exploitation, is most commonly used by cyber attackers?
Ma'am, it's any of the above, based on what's going to work. So attackers will often look for broad vulnerabilities and deploy multiple different tools or vectors of attack to achieve their goals. So it's very, very challenging to say statistically which one is more prevalent. The better question is, how have we as a collective at the American level, but also the corporation level, armed ourselves to defend against them?
Okay, and could you answer that question?
Sure. I mean, it's all about, hygiene for information security. I've mentioned a few of these, right? Multi-factor authentication, two-factor authentication for all of us at home on general accounts, complicated passwords, having active backups, those types of standard, what I would call hygiene, operating system, routine operating system maintenance is very, very important.
What level of cooperation have you seen from the private sector in terms of arming their systems and working with you to do just that?
I mean, we have very, very strong relationships with the private sector that cross-cut, pretty much every industry in this country. And so I mentioned this earlier in my testimony, I think the private sector has really answered the bell here in the last year about coming and being part of solutions, because they own a lot of the infrastructure that we all use to have our daily access to the internet. And so they're seeing adversary activity very, very quickly, and they've been a tremendous part of the solution in the distant past, but really in the recent past.
What other, type of cyber attacks, or we talked about the phishing emails, we talked about the software exploitation. What other types of strategies did you see in 2021?
Well, we look at it, there's ransomware, botnets, I mean, the list goes on and on. Spear phishing is a very, very important targeting tool that all of the adversaries use. It's not as simple to say that 80% of all cyber intrusions occur because of spear phishing. I know that statistic is out there, but there's a lot of interdependencies once an adversary has access to a system. But, you know, really arming an organization or institution with understanding what spear phishing looks like, very, very helpful step for any organization.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentlelady yields back. Mr. Jordan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Borndran, why did the Biden administration release Burkhoff?
Sir, Mr. Burkhoff was investigated by the U.S. Secret Service, not by the FBI. I don't know specifics. What I do know is that there was no swap or concession, and it's my understanding that his release...
So we didn't get anything for it?
Sir, to the best of my knowledge, there were no swap or concessions.
Well, why do you think I mean, you've said Russia, your statements today, formidable foe, foremost adversary, and the threat is current. Mr. Burkhoff has been described as an asset of supreme importance, one of the most connected, skilled, malicious hackers ever apprehended by U.S. authorities, and you don't know why we let him go?
No, sir, it's a Department of Justice question. The FBI
But you're the
doesn't have a-
director of cyber at the FBI in the Department of Justice. It's part of the Department of Justice, right?
Sir, yes, sir, it is, but obviously we're our own agency.
Now, look, I read your bio, and other than the degree from Michigan, it's pretty impressive. You've worked at FBI for, you've worked at the FBI for like 20 years, right? You've held all kinds of positions. You're the director of cyber, and you can't tell me why we let the most notorious Russian hacker go, and you don't know what we got for it.
No, sir.
Were you consulted?
It's not an FBI investigation.
But you're the cyber man. Just Mr. Gaetz just talked about, you're the key guy. You're the guy the administration sent here today to talk about cyber in lieu of in light of the fact that last week President Biden said the threat from Russia is imminent. You've confirmed that today. You said it is current, is as we speak, and you can't answer if it was a good idea or not, whether you were consulted?
Sir, I don't actually, no, to your question, I was not consulted.
You were not consulted. Okay. You think it was a good idea?
Sir, I'm not in a position to comment on that.
The head of cyber is not in a position to comment. The guy in front of the Judiciary Committee at a time when the most formidable foe, our #1 enemy when it comes to cyber attacks, with the threat that's imminent and current, can't answer whether it was a good idea or not to release the most notorious Russian hacker we've ever caught.
Sir, it was a Department of Justice decision through the U.S. courts process, right? I would refer all the questions on Mr. Burkhoff.
Mr. Borndran, why'd you come? So far today, you've not been able to answer questions about Pegasus. You can't answer questions about sensitive investigative matters. Mr. Gaetz just went through the whole thing on Hunter Biden's laptop. You couldn't answer any questions about that. Can you answer questions about anything today? Can you answer questions about the school board situation, the spying on parents? Do you know anything about that?
Just to correct the record, sir, I actually did answer the questions to 2 representatives about NSO and Pegasus. To your point, I have not answered questions about the Hunter Biden laptop or about
the sensitive investigative matters.
I was just going to say that, if you let me finish, or about the sensitive investigative matter audit.
You know how many threat tags are on parents? How many of the threat tags that say EDU official have been assigned? How many cases now have that threat tag designation? Do you know anything about that?
Sir, no. All those questions should be referred to the Department of Justice.
Last week, in Mr. Biden's speech, he said this. I mean, just to emphasize, I can't figure this out. He said, when he's talking to business leaders, the magnitude of Russia's cyber capacity is fairly consequential, and it's coming, as we've talked about before, and as you've said as well. We'll help you, saying to the business leaders, we'll help you in any way to deal with cyber attacks. Do you think it helps the businesses who the president is asking to do everything you can to shore up your systems? Do you think it helps to release the most notorious Russian hacker we've ever apprehended?
Sir, I'm not going to answer any questions about Mr. Burkhoff's Secret Service case. As I said, the decision was made, through my understanding, through the ordinary course of action by the U.S. courts.
Well, you've agreed to give us briefings on other issues. Do you think there's someone at the FBI who can brief us on the Burkhoff situation?
Probably not, because it's not our case.
Do you think there's a chance Mr. Burkhoff's name was on the Hunter Biden laptop?
Sir, I have no idea.
No idea, and that says it all. That says it all, because we want someone in front of the committee, as Mr. Gaetz alluded to earlier. We want someone who can answer these questions about our constituents come up to me and talk to me about the school board situation. They come up and talk to me about the Hunter Biden laptop. They talk about all this. They're concerned with the fact that we had an FBI that has abused the FISA process. Looks like they've abused this sensitive investigative matter process. We've sent letters on it not to get a response. And by the way, we did send a letter to the Biden administration on the Burkhoff situation, ask them to respond by 5 o'clock yesterday. Got no response from them, and then the guy we send today, or the guy who comes in front of the committee today, can't answer any questions about that either. Seems to me that's that'd be the most important question that we'd want the witness, Mr. Chairman, to be able to answer is the whole, why did the United States of America let go Alexei Burkhoff? Why did we release him, put him on a plane back to Moscow when this is